In a quiet English countryside, children play and learn and dream of futures that will never come. They carry within their bodies the seeds of someone else's tomorrow, their own tomorrows carefully pruned away. We all complete. Maybe none of us really understand what we've lived through or feel we've had enough time. Kazuo Ishiguro understands the weight of unspoken truths. Born in Nagasaki in 1954, he carries the memory of a city rebuilt from atomic ash, a landscape where the unthinkable became ordinary. His childhood moves to England at age 5, creating a permanent sense of displacement, of living between worlds. The fog rolls across the moors of Hailsham, that peculiar boarding school where students learn watercolours and poetry, but never quite learn why they exist. In the mist, shapes shift and meanings blur. What looks like childhood innocence reveals itself as something far more complex. Ishiguro writes in the new millennium, when cloning debates rage in laboratories and parliaments, Dolly the sheep has been born and died. The Human Genome Project maps our genetic destiny. Science fiction becomes science fact, and the author asks, what makes us human? Kathy H. speaks to us from the margins of society, her voice steady as a river, carrying stories that should not exist. She is 31 years old, a carer who tends to others before they give away their vital organs. Her tone remains gentle, even when describing the unthinkable. Memory becomes a sacred act in this world. Kathy holds on to moments like pressed flowers, a conversation by the pond, a song that made her cry, the way Tommy's face looked when he discovered the truth. These fragments are all that remain of stolen childhoods. The cassette tape plays Judy Bridgewater's Never Let Me Go, and Kathy dances alone in her dormitory, cradling an imaginary baby. She doesn't understand why the song moves her so deeply, why she feels such longing for something she cannot name. Miss Emily watches from her wheelchair, guardian of terrible secrets. She has spent her life caring for children who are not quite children, teaching them to create art while knowing their creations will never hang in galleries. Her burden weighs heavier than any stone. Ishiguro's prose moves like water, surface calm but carrying deep currents. He learned his craft in the shadow of Proust and Dickens, understanding that the most profound truths often hide in the spaces between words. His sentences breathe with restraint and revelation. The Norfolk coast stretches endlessly, where lost things supposedly wash ashore. Kathy, Ruth, and Tommy search for traces of their past selves, believing they might find the originals whose DNA shaped their existence. The shoreline holds no answers, only endless questions. Friendship becomes both salvation and torment. Ruth manipulates and loves with equal intensity, guarding her secrets like a dragon guarding gold. Tommy rages against the dying of the light, his anger a flame that refuses to be extinguished despite the predetermined darkness ahead. The gallery exists in whispered rumours, a place where student artwork might reveal the presence of a soul. If they can prove they possess something ineffable, something beyond mere biology, perhaps they can claim more time. Perhaps love might save them. Ishiguro writes against the backdrop of Tony Blair's Britain, where genetic modification and bioethics dominate headlines. The author sees how easily societies accept the unacceptable when it serves their interests. His dystopia wears the face of English politeness. The sales are events where students claim objects from the outside world, books, clothes, accessories that once belonged to people who live freely. These treasures represent connection to a world they will never truly enter, tokens of lives they will never fully live. Madame collects their artwork with tears in her eyes, though the students don't understand why. She sees something in their creations that speaks to their humanity, even as she participates in a system that denies it. Her collection becomes a monument to complicity. The white van appears at the edge of the playing field, and students whisper about the boy who tried to climb the fence. Fear takes root in their hearts, not of escape, but of the unknown world beyond their carefully constructed boundaries. Ishiguro's Nobel Prize in 2017 recognizes his exploration of self-deception and buried trauma. His work excavates the stories we tell ourselves to survive, the beautiful lies that make unbearable truths bearable. Literature becomes archaeology of the human heart. The cottages represent a brief flowering of freedom, where students from different schools mix and learn about the world. But even here, the shadow of their purpose looms. They play at being normal while time slips away like sand through their fingers. Ruth's lies about her possible original working in an office become a desperate attempt to claim dignity. She imagines a life of purpose and respect, a future where she matters beyond her biological function. Her deception becomes a form of hope. Tommy's animals, those intricate drawings he creates in his final months, pulse with life and longing. Each creature represents something wild and free, everything he has been denied. His art becomes his rebellion against genetic determinism. The Japanese concept of mono no aware, the pathos of things, flows through Ishiguro's work. There is beauty in impermanence, in the fleeting nature of existence. Even these stolen lives carry profound meaning in their brevity. Kathy's role as carer places her in the liminal space between life and death. She watches friends and lovers complete their purpose, offering comfort in their final moments. Her compassion becomes both her strength and her burden. The rumour of deferrals, extra time granted to couples who can prove true love, reveals the human need to believe in exceptions. Even in a world stripped of choice, hope persists. The heart refuses to accept the unacceptable. Ishiguro writes from personal experience of loss and displacement. His father's death, his mother's dementia, his own navigation between cultures, all feed into his understanding of how we construct meaning from fragments of memory and longing. The Norfolk trip becomes a pilgrimage of sorts, 3 friends seeking closure and understanding. They find only empty beaches and tourist shops, but something shifts in their relationships. Truth begins to surface like debris after a storm. Miss Emily's revelation strips away the last pretense. There were never any deferrals, never any exceptions. The gallery was simply a way to make the guardians feel better about their complicity. Even kindness becomes a form of control. The author's exploration of memory and identity resonates in our digital age, where artificial intelligence and genetic engineering pose new questions about consciousness and humanity. His work feels more relevant with each passing year. Ruth's apology comes too late, but not too late. She acknowledges her manipulations, her jealousy, her fear of being forgotten. In the car park of that anonymous town, she claims her dignity through honesty. The beached boat in the marshes becomes a metaphor for all their dreams, something that once moved freely through vast spaces, now stranded and immobile. Yet even in its abandonment, it retains a kind of tragic beauty. Ishiguro's style influences a generation of writers exploring the boundaries between realism and speculative fiction. His approach proves that the most effective dystopias don't announce themselves with fanfare, but whisper their horrors in familiar voices. Kathy's final visits to Ruth and Tommy carry the weight of love and loss. She offers what comfort she can, knowing that each goodbye is truly final. Her presence becomes a gift, the last human connection before the ultimate surrender. The author's understanding of institutional power shapes his narrative. He sees how systems perpetuate themselves through normalcy, how atrocities hide behind bureaucracy and politeness. His England is recognizable and terrifying. Tommy's rage finally finds its voice in his art, those impossible creatures that defy the boundaries of his existence. His imagination becomes his legacy, proof that even the most constrained souls can create beauty. The tape recorder plays on, Judy Bridgewater's voice floating through empty rooms where children once learned to paint and write and dream. The song endures, carrying its message of love and loss across the years. Ishiguro's work questions whether knowing the truth brings freedom or merely another form of imprisonment. His characters face their fate with eyes wide open, but their knowledge doesn't change their destiny. The white corridors of the treatment centres gleam with medical efficiency, but cannot hide the human cost of progress. Each donation becomes a ritual sacrifice on the altar of extended life for those deemed worthy. Kathy's narrative voice remains steady even as her world crumbles. She offers her story not as accusation but as testimony, as proof that even the most disposable lives carry meaning and dignity. The author's exploration of acceptance and resistance resonates across cultures and contexts. His characters find ways to assert their humanity within systems designed to deny it, creating meaning from the fragments of their abbreviated lives. The final pages echo with unspoken questions about complicity and compassion, about the stories we tell ourselves to sleep at night. Ishiguro forces us to confront our own capacity for both cruelty and love. In the end, we are all completing something: our education, our relationships, our time on Earth. The difference lies not in the length of our days, but in the depth of our connections, the truth of our stories, the love we leave behind.